Another week, another edition of the Robin Lundberg Show here with you. And, I'm going to explain the title of this show through the prism of this show before I get into more details specifically as to how I reached this conclusion that Caitlin Clark is underpaid by Nike. Let me first say, if you've been following this show or you've been following me for a minute here, you understand that um, the look, hold on, I gotta fix my microphone here in a second. You understand that the um show itself, I've been searching for and looking for what you would call a niche. What you would call a niche when you look at this show and how I deliver topics and what topics I get to specifically. That's something I've talked about with the audience here because I have a bevy of interests. I have a bevy of interests, and they've all resonated in some way, shape, or form for me, whether they be through the short form in the rap category or superhero category or professional wrestling, obviously. And my following has been built on basketball. My following has been built on basketball. There's no question. So that's where people knew me the most from. But as I was searching for this, what you call it, niche, if you will, I wasn't sure how to structure the show. I wasn't sure if there was one thing that people are going to rock with more than other things until last week. Last week, when I started talking about Caitlin Clark. I started talking about Caitlin Clark, and the numbers went through the roof. And I'm not saying for sure that I'm now a Caitlin Clark and WNBA Women's Hooper show, but I owe it to myself to test the waters there. I owe it to myself because I think what we see right now is a unique moment in time. We are in a once in a lifetime moment with a generational athlete. And if you had gone back, as I referred to Caitlin Clark as the Michael Jordan of women's basketball in the past, if you were to go back and you had a chance to hop on the Michael Jordan bandwagon at that time, you'd be silly not to hop on. And you still get people scoffing at the idea of women's hoops blowing up and women's basketball blowing up. And maybe it was just last week. Maybe just last week that was a hot topic and I won't see the same returns. But if I'm being real with you, if you look at the show analytics, 8 of the last 10 most viewed episodes were the ones that featured Caitlin Clark talk. In the history of the channel, I believe 7 of the 10 most viewed episodes were the ones that featured Caitlin Clark talk. And that's not just isolated to this here show either. And it's just simply not, because if you go look at here, I posted this today on X or Twitter, but over the weekend, this reel I did on Caitlin Clark that sort of summed up my point of view on this entire topic right here. It's north of that number now, but 360,000 views. 360,000 views plus, still going. And that's just on Facebook. That's just on Facebook. So again, I'm not fully there yet because I have to see it for more than a few days, more than a simple return. But it's a very fascinating, more than a small sample size return, I guess I would say. It's a very fascinating phenomenon that we're in right now. And we're not that far away from the start of the WNBA season. Just a few weeks away. Just a few weeks away. And I'm going to talk some NBA on today's show, but I saw actual tweets. I saw actual comments online of people saying, I can't wait for the WNBA season to start with this NBA playoffs going on. And here's the thing about the NBA, and maybe this is partially a thing about Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is an anomaly, the way she's shooting the basketball and where she's shooting the basketball from. Where she's shooting the basketball from, how she's shooting, how she plays, because we haven't seen that style completely take over the WNBA and women's basketball yet, like we have seen on the NBA side. And in a way, it dilutes the product on the NBA side because everybody can shoot the ball and everybody can shoot the ball from anywhere. And it makes it impossible to guard. It makes it impossible to stop teams. It makes it impossible to defend. And it leads to a ton of blowouts because if one team is hotter than the other team and they play with a little bit more energy, they bury the other team. Now, it means no lead is safe, but it also can lead to a less aesthetically pleasing product. When on the women's side, you're going to see more of that style of ball people yearn for. Because it may not be high flying and they may not be dunking all over each other, but you're going to see a lot of pick and roll action that leads to layups at the rim. You're going to see, ladies with their back to the basket working out of the post. You're going to see offense underneath the three-point line, as well as now spread out to the three-point line. And I think the Caitlin Clark effect, and remember this, I'm not going to, I'm going to talk about more than just Caitlin Clark if I do this. Again, and I'm not sure I'm doing it yet, but I'm certainly considering it. And for my loyal followers, I want you to know that. I'm certainly considering it. What I will do if I do this is continue to, as the show goes down, as I get further into the show, talk about wrestling, talk about rap, talk about superheroes like I will today. Because I don't ever want to not talk about that because I enjoy talking about it. But there's certainly a part of me that's looking at the returns that I'm getting, and I have to keep this experiment going until I decide whether it's for real or not. But I'm certainly considering leading each show with a Caitlin Clark and or women's basketball topic and covering her first season in the WNBA and the rest of the WNBA as a result, as sort of a beat reporter in a sense, as a moment in time, as a journalist, right? So certainly something I'm considering. And I would continue to drop the shorts on every other topic as well. So I'm not going to not talk about that other stuff or the NBA that you guys have grown accustomed to me talking about. If I do go this route, again, I have to see if the returns continue in the same way. But if they do, I can't reject what the universe is telling me. But nevertheless, I think the Caitlin Clark effect is going to see other women become major stars. You're going to see, I saw Paige Beckers trending earlier today. I think Juju Watkins has a chance to be a real star. And there's other aspects of this that are very fascinating because it is I do enjoy talking about it because it's a fascinating topic on a number of levels. You've got a singular individual who's having a Michael Jordan-like impact on the sport, a needle mover. But you also have the discourse around it, which is part of it is like a resentment towards women's sports. If you've ever seen or covered women's sports in the past, you will see a backlash to the women and people who talk about women and women's sports coverage in general. You get a backlash to that. No question. So there's that aspect of it. There's the aspect that it just hasn't been that popular, and now all of a sudden it could become popular. You have the racial component to it, which certainly came up last week. I mean, I had people call me a racist because I said Caitlin Clark's popular because of basketball and not because she's white. I'm not saying that has nothing to do with it, but I think it doesn't have much to do with it in her case. Not to say that that's never been the case otherwise. Because again, I think you could see star power growth from other young ladies like a Juju Watkins. And I pointed to the NBA side where there's no white guys who are popular in the NBA. The only white guys who are popular are Luka and Jokic. And they're not, Jokic ain't that popular. He's respected, but he's not moving sneakers. Right? I think it's Caitlin Clark's playing style. And a rising tide lifts all boats. But there is that factor to it, and there are people trying to hate on her because of it. And, I've never seen people point to college championships the way they've pointed to college championships in her case. Like, has anyone ever argued against Steph Curry because he didn't win at Davidson? Or Tim Duncan because he didn't win at Wake Forest? And LeBron and Kobe didn't even go to college. Carmelo doesn't get extra props for winning at the college level. And all that's to say, I get the returns that I've seen, the video views that I've seen, the YouTube views that I've seen, and maybe it was just a hot topic last week. Maybe I just capitalized on a hot topic a week ago, and it won't be that way going forward. But I'm exploring it. I'm at least seeing what the deal is here. I got to at least see what the deal is here, and just how much of a needle mover she is, and just how consistent that traffic can be, and just how underserved that niche may be right now. If it doesn't work, if it doesn't sustain, I'll go back to the format that I was doing and pick what I think is the most interesting thing on a given day amongst my interests. But consider this a test case. And that's all to say, I kind of do think Caitlin Clark is underpaid by Nike. I kind of think she's underpaid by Nike. Why do I say that? Well, if you look at the deal that LeBron signed when he came into the league, before he had proved anything at the NBA level, at least from what my understanding, I don't know the inner workings of her deal. Perhaps she has some mega percentage of shoe sales or something like that factors into the contract. So maybe that's the case. But I think when you look at the just raw numbers, I think her deal is like $28 million. And LeBron's was like $87 million on his first deal. Something like 3 times as much. And he hadn't played in an NBA game yet. And now LeBron reportedly is making $30 million a year from Nike at least, which is more than the entirety of Clark's contract. Now, I'm not saying LeBron ain't worth that. Everybody who knows me knows I believe LeBron James is the greatest basketball player, or at least the best basketball player who ever lived. Deservedly so. He's getting that bank. Deservedly so. And of course, I'm not a moron. The men's game is much bigger than the women's game and always has been. But I do think we're in the midst of a sea change here. And I'm not saying the WNBA is going to be more popular than the NBA this year. But women's college basketball, when it mattered, was more popular than men's college basketball. Fact. It's a fact. In the Final Four, the LSU-Iowa game, the championship game, men's college basketball performed worse than women's college basketball when it came to getting eyeballs. And that is almost all due to Caitlin Clark. And I believe that is going to translate to the WNBA. I do. I think you're going to have more people following that league as a result of this. And following Chicago so they can see Angel Reese. And following the Aces so they can see, who Asia Wilson is and why she was talked about. And following the Liberty because of Breanna Stewart and, of course, Sabrina Ionescu. And so on and so forth. And then following the college game to see what Paige Beckers does next and what Juju Watkins does next. I just listed off more women's basketball players than I could have listed off in the past. And if you had told me that I would even be considering what I'm considering now, I would have said, you're crazy. You're crazy cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs a few years back, a year back, maybe a month back. And again, I'm not fully there yet, but I'm certainly thinking about it. And I'm certainly testing to see this as we go along. So I think there's a chance Caitlin Clark is hitting an underserved market, right? Because are little girls going to buy her shoes? I mean, I think some dudes would buy her shoes. I think some guys would buy her shoes. I would buy her shoes. I would buy her shoes for my daughter. Her jersey's already sold out. Why won't the same thing happen for her shoes? And for everybody who keeps telling me in the comment section, this is not going to happen at the WNBA level, what about the evidence tells you this? What about the evidence tells you this? Carlito Ortiz says, pay me $20 million and I'm happy. And let me first say, word. Pay me $20 million once, you'll never see me again. I might still do this for fun, but you get the point. I'm not saying that Caitlin Clark shouldn't have taken the deal. Not saying that. I'm not saying that it's a bad offer from Nike at all. Not saying that. The title is to get people into the show to hear my more fleshed out point. What I'm saying is she might actually be worth more when you just look at the attention she's getting, because I'm not sure whose shoes I'd rather be in right now. I'm not sure Caitlin Clark isn't the future face of basketball, period. We keep asking about who's the face of the NBA, the next face of the NBA. Is it Anthony Edwards? Is it Luka Doncic? Is it Victor Wembanyama? But Caitlin Clark may be bigger than all of them. I'm not kidding. I've done this for a long time, guys. I've done this for a long time. And it's very rare you see a needle mover like this. LeBron James, yeah. Steph Curry, I guess so. Maybe Patrick Mahomes on the NFL side, maybe. But I don't even think he's driven traffic like this. Shohei Ohtani for a minute there, but not sustained. There's other dynamics at play here. One, it's the elevation of women's sports. Two, it's the possible access to the women's market. Three, it's the debate that's gone on about the racial components that brings people in. Four, it's the style of play, and then people get eyeballs on it and they're attracted to the basketball. Five, you got a chance to get the old model that's gone away in the NBA, where you grow with the players, where you see them come up and then you see them go to the pros and you follow their careers. There's a lot of unique factors here. And as we're approaching the WNBA season, it's interesting. It's going to be very interesting to follow. But I'm not saying they lowballed her, and I'm not saying she shouldn't have taken it. That's silly, right? All I'm saying is, when you look at the numbers, when you look at the road teams having to move their arenas, 36 of the 40 Fever games being televised after only one being televised the year before, the WNBA draft having 6 times more viewers, or having more viewers than the last 6 drafts combined, the women outrating the men in college, her jersey being sold faster than any jersey in history, the ticket prices to get into the Fever games more than doubling. When you take all that into consideration, I'm not sure she's not worth the same as the signature shoe on the men's side. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see. Ernesto says, as long as you don't talk about Kardashians, we're all good. I mean, I can only promise I won't talk about them like relative to their, I'm not keeping up with the Kardashians. Let's put it that way. The only time they're going to come up is if they fall into the realm of whatever else I'm talking about. Bill L says, was nice to hear you on ESPN New York again. I was on with my guy, Ty Butler, yesterday. Caitlin Clark says, Doug the developer will play in a working class state in Indiana. If her rival plays in LA, it could really mirror the Bird versus Magic rivalry. And don't forget skin color, LOL. Well, her rival is playing in, at least the rival that we've seen her have thus far is playing in Chicago, in Chi-Town. And let me be very clear to anybody who's checking this out for the first time, because I've seen, the comments and I get it. But I have a lot of respect for Angel Reese. I have no hate for Angel Reese. I think Angel Reese is a very charismatic young lady and a good basketball player. She's just not as good as Caitlin Clark. She's just not. And that's okay. It's not a dish. She's just not even close to as good. Not even close to as good. But she's still good. And she's really, really charismatic. I'd put her in any commercial. I like Angel Reese a lot. Not a diss. Again, you're going to get the rising tide lifts all boats, because you're going to get more interest in like Cameron Brink and Sabrina Ionescu and Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart and Paige Beckers to come and Juju Watkins to come next year. And again, you get to follow these stories, unlike the men's side, because the game hasn't been watered down. And you get to see these stories because you're not in the same pathway that the NBA is, where the game's already been, sort of changed, both in style play and development. Kevin Zwicker says, as someone who never cared about the WNBA, I'm willing to give it a try now because of Clark. Yeah, I mean, that's what she is. She's a change agent. She's generational. She is. That's why I said the Michael Jordan of the sport. I really believe that. And I know people say she hasn't done it at the WNBA level and all that. You really think she's not going to? Have y'all watched the same player that I've watched? Come on. Have y'all watched the same player that I've watched? Of course she is. Michael Martin says you're damn right she is. I think that's in reference to the original question or the original statement that she's underpaid by Nike. Caitlin Clark underpaid by Nike, as you can see in the lower third there. Ernesto says, we need to see the progress on this, Robin. We need to see this in a couple of years to see if the money in the contracts go up, the endorsement goes up. That's going to be contingent on the media rights deal, right? Like that's what we're going to see. The media rights deal is going to determine that. And I think you'll see them more than double their media rights deal because of the interest in Caitlin Clark and the flow to come, if you will. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel. And obviously, you guys are getting your comments in as you see. Bunch of the regulars in here today. We had a bunch of new listeners in last week. I see Carlito Ortiz. I don't think, I had put his comment up earlier. Carlitos Ortiz. I don't believe he's been in here before. So welcome, sir. Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up button. Share, comment later if you're watching this later. And again, what I said off the top of the show is not set in stone, but it's something I'm considering. And everybody who's followed this show knows that I'm open with the audience and honest with the audience. And I want to make sure, those of you who have been along for the ride from the beginning understand why I might do a certain thing or why I might not do a certain thing. I'm always going to keep talking about the stuff that I want to talk about. Well, not that I would never start with something I didn't want to talk about, but I'll always, in addition, talk about the stuff that I want to talk about down the rundown of the show and in short form format. And again, if the returns don't continue the way that I've seen them, then I'll won't make the pivot I'm considering. But if the returns do continue the way I've seen them, I'd be a fool not to make the pivot that I'm considering. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. But we will get into the Knicks as well. If you've got anything else to say about the topic at hand, Caitlin Clark, I tried to explain it as best I could and how it could lead me to focus more, at least regardless, I'm focusing more on the WNBA and women's basketball. Whether that becomes the focus or not, that is certainly going to be something I will focus on more. Ernesto Luciano says, hey, look at the rise of Ryan Rucco. Women's basketball is not doing bad for him, is it? No, he got on that train I was texting him about that. Boy, oh boy. AJ Schreiber says, I think Gino Auriemma was right. Through about one and done in the NCAA women's. The WNBA is going to surge because NCAA has surged. Fans are able to follow college careers, and then hopefully those transition into the WNBA. Yeah, that's what I was saying before. Because that used to be the model, men's basketball followed, and now nobody is in college for a long time. And you don't follow those stories for a long time. And in addition to that, you don't you know, there is some backlash to the style of basketball that's played at the at the NBA level now. Because Caitlin Clark's shooting is still a novelty. A lot of ladies can shoot. But the way Caitlin shoots the ball, the distance she shoots the ball, the accuracy, the volume she shoots it has not permeated the game yet. Where in the NBA, you can't be a big man and not shoot the ball. And it makes for more efficient teams and more efficient game. But to many, it's a less aesthetically pleasing game, and it can lead to a lot of blowouts. That's for sure. Bill L says, with the new era of basketball, no big men presence and more shooting, she will do well, and her game will translate. Well, there is a lot of big men, big women in the WNBA. I mean, Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart and Cardoso just got drafted, and Reese to an extent. I mean, there's a lot of women who have size relative to the ladies' game. This is all relative too. Like, I had people comment, well, you're saying that Clark could play in the NBA. I did not say that when I said she could be the face of basketball. This is about attention drawn. This is about the fanfare. This is about the, translatable interest that's coming to that league and for that league. AJ says, I think the comments Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird made about Caitlin were to enhance the drama. I'm all for it. I mean, it's a little sneak hating. I didn't appreciate that, to be honest, and I love those ladies. I mean, I think part of it could be like resentment in the sense that they didn't get covered that way when they're ballers. Diana Taurasi is a baller. Sue Bird, a baller. But every woman should be celebrating. Every man and woman, every basketball fan should be celebrating Caitlin Clark. She's good for the game. She's good for the sport. And she's a seismic change for the women's game. There's nothing to hate. And I love those ladies. Taurasi has sauce. And Sue Bird should kill you with those mid-range. This is not disrespect to the ladies of the present or have come before. Asia Wilson's a really good basketball player. She's not as marketable as Caitlin Clark. And not because she's black and Clark is white, because of their games. Big men are just not as marketable across time. No one was going to buy Tim Duncan shoes. Shaq was maybe the most marketable big man ever, and he's got the biggest personality ever. But even Shaq, not as marketable from a shoe standpoint as Kobe. And Jordan's the most marketable ever from the shoe standpoint. Not Kareem. And LeBron and Steph. Those guys. That's why I think, Wemby, when people say Wemby could be the face of basketball, he might be too tall. Not sure. Bill L says, Ty must have knew something called the Knicks series over. And then he references the Maxey news this morning. That Knicks-Sixers series is not over, I'll tell you that much. I don't, what's the score right now? Sixers 15, Knicks 9, midway through the first quarter. That Embiid jersey burning thing, I just feel like the basketball gods will not let that go. And I know that was not the majority of Knicks fans. I understand. Like, trust me, I understand that was not Knicks fans as a whole who were doing that clown behavior. That was just a small group of Knicks fans or whoever they were, whatever they were. Here's the video of it actually happening. Let me pull that up real quick. Boop, boo, doo, 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 doo. Like, I understand, guys. Like, this. But come on. You had to know that was going to blow up in your face. And then even just the celebrating in general, it's okay. I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about it just because I don't want to be that guy. And I get it. Fans are excited. But I feel like this is every time the Knicks win a playoff game. Every single time. It's like they won the finals. And you could argue that that means they have the best fan base and the most passionate fans. Certainly, you could argue that. And I'm not mad. It's ultimately harmless, but you haven't beaten the Sixers yet. You don't want Boston. I mean, beat the Sixers first. That was one game. That could have gone either way. The difference in that game one was the role players. It was Deuce McBride keeping the Knicks in striking distance, which he did. And then it was Josh Hart finishing the game, which he did. If my life came down to one person getting a loose ball, I think I would pick Josh Hart. That guy, I love that guy. What a player. What a player. But it's like you're trying to give people meme material to throw in your face when you lose. Because let's just say Philly wins tonight's game. Then all of a sudden, they have control of the series. They won a game, where a series doesn't start until one team wins on the road. That mantra would be true if Philly wins tonight. And then they're in control of the series. Kevin Zwicker says, let's go, Knicks. Ernesto Luciano says, dumbasses. And that's coming from a Knicks fan. Kevin Zwicker says, we've been bad for so long. We celebrate to make up all the time for. Yeah, I get it. You celebrate to make up for the time you were suffering. Like, I understand. It's pretty easy to see. Like, I get it. But it just shows that you haven't been there in forever. It just emphasizes, I guess, I would say, that you haven't been there in forever. That's all. We'll see how the game unfolds. I'll keep you updated. Right now, it's 19-13 Knicks, 3 minutes and 40. 19-13 Sixers, 3 minutes and 40 seconds left in the first quarter of that game. I started the show. That 7:30 slot's been working pretty good for me. I've been hitting that pretty consistently. I started 10 minutes earlier. One, to get in front of the Knicks game a little bit. And two, because I have to pick up my son from practice at 8:15. So I've got until about then to rock and roll with you. And I wanted to get a full show. And he's right down I can get there in 2 minutes. So I can almost go up to the buzzer. In fact, I probably can go up to 8:15, and I might even go on foot and run there to pick him up. Here was another topic I wanted to get to today: Wolverine and the superhero Mount Rushmore. This is interesting to me. I did one of my shorts on this today. Did really well on TikTok and Instagram specifically. It's funny to see like how certain things do so much better on certain platforms versus some hit on every single platform. But and YouTube shorts are a little delayed, so sometimes it's hard to tell. But this was the short. I think people forget Wolverine is on the Mount Rushmore of superheroes and is Marvel's most popular character next to Spider-Man. Iron Man took off with the movies, but before that, it was Logan. So all those critics of the Marvel box office are about to get hit with a snikt. I thought that was pretty clever. And it's true. It's true. Like Wolverine was the guy in the 90s. If anybody remembers Wizard Magazine, there was something called Wizard Magazine, which would rank the most popular superheroes of the time. And Wolverine was always number one. Every month, it felt like he was number one. Cable was very hot at that time. Deadpool was coming up in the ranks. Some of those Image characters were coming up in the ranks. But it was like Wolverine, 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 Wolverine. And the X-Men were the hottest thing in the 90s. And if you looked at the stamp on the Marvel corners, it was Wolverine and Spider-Man, because those were the two guys. Spider-Man's the most relatable. Wolverine was that anti-hero, and Wolverine moved the needle. So if I were to give you the Mount Rushmore of superheroes, it would go like this: Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, and Wolverine. That would be my Mount Rushmore. The other people contending for a spot are Iron Man based off the movies alone. Iron Man from the comic books is not in the conversation. Iron Man from the movies, though, because of how successful the MCU was, Iron Man, uh, Wonder Woman, the Hulk, and Captain America. Those are the 8 to me. I don't know who 9 and 10 would be, but I think it's those 8. Those are the 8 biggest superheroes of all time. And I don't even know if there's a counter argument. Maybe somebody could send me in a counter argument. But my Mount Rushmore would be Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, and Wolverine. What say you? Brandon 1050 says Hulk. Yeah, well, I mean, Hulk, look behind me. You see Hulk and Wolverine? That's Incredible Hulk number 181. That's the first appearance of Wolverine right there. And Hulk had that Lou Ferrigno show, which was big in its day. And Hulk is very, I mean, look, kids, the Hulk smash. You know, like everybody loves that. But Hulk didn't move the books like Wolverine moved the books. The X-Men was one of the first movies before the MCU. And this is partially because Marvel didn't own these properties, but it was partially because these are the most popular properties. Blade sort of kicked things off, doesn't get credit, but Blade was a niche thing. The 2 Marvel properties that got made first were Spider-Man and X-Men. Spider-Man and Wolverine. Because what did the Marvel movies feature? What did the X-Men movies feature? Wolverine. And who got the solo movies, even though they sucked? Wolverine. Watch what happens when Wolverine is reintroduced into the MCU and they can now use the X-Men and they can use their version of Wolverine. All those people who've been sleeping on the box office, like I said, snicked. It's coming for them. Kevin Zwicker says, that trailer was everything I've wanted from a Wolverine Deadpool movie. Going to be a sad day when someone else wears those claws and not Hugh Jackman. I think you'll see it in that movie. I think you will see other Wolverines, if at least one other Wolverine, if not other Wolverines introduced in that movie. I believe that. AJ says that trailer was awesome. Wolverine dropping F-bombs. Ernesto says biggest I got Hulk as number 5 smash. Yeah, I mean Hulk's number 5 or Iron Man's number 5 because of the movies, or Wonder Woman or Captain America. Those are the other ones. But you can continue to send your comments in on the superhero Mount Rushmore, but I think it's hard to argue with my choices there. I think it's hard to argue. Doug Developer says, wholeheartedly on the first 3, I replaced Wolverine with Cap. There's no way, dude. There's no way. Go look at Wolverine and X-Men comic book sales versus Captain America comic book sales. If you want to use the movies as an argument, Iron Man's bigger than Cap in the movies. Cap's 2. He's good, but he ain't bigger than Iron Man in the movies. And he sure as hell ain't bigger than Wolverine in the comics. That's just my 2 cents on it. Going back to the topic at the top of the show, I wanted to get this other comment in from Brandon 1050 here, who says Caitlin Clark is face of the new generation movement, and I love it. Welcome, because I haven't seen you here before. I know I just read one of your comments, but I want to make sure I give special love to some of the commenters that I haven't seen in here before. Of course, all of y'all who are in here all the time, you know I love you. And you know I read your comments every show. But I want to make sure that the new people are represented as well, and they see that this is an interactive show, and I will engage with your comments. To that, please engage with the show below. Like, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't, click the like button afterwards. Click the comment button afterwards if you're commenting after the fact and you want to get involved in the show. I will respond to the comments later. I'm trying to respond to the comments on all the shorts I've done in the last couple days. It's hard. There's a lot of I get it's a humble brag, right? I get a lot of engagement here on this show. I have been, and that's very flattering. Certainly very flattering, but I try to get back to as many comments as I possibly can on this here program. So I thank you all for the interaction. Kevin says, do you have any interest in the new Superman movie coming out? I know you're not a DC guy. Well, James Gunn is doing it, so there is a little bit of interest there. I mean, he did a really nice job with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Look, he made people care about the Guardians of the Galaxy. I actually kind of like the first Zack Snyder Superman movie. Kind of. I don't find Superman that interesting as a character. That's my biggest hindrance. Like, I just don't find him that interesting as a character. Batman's very brooding, but when you combine that with the Rogues Gallery, I get it. Wonder Woman, I just get from a representation standpoint, obviously. But I've always found DC's characters to be a little lamer than Marvel's character. But Superman in particular, I don't find him that interesting. But yes, I will watch it. I will watch it for sure and give it a chance. And I did, like I said, I kind of liked the first Zack Snyder Superman. I liked it much more, let's put it that way, than those other DC movies outside of the Nolan Batman movies. I liked it better than those. Doug Developer says, hot take, I think Deadpool's shtick is starting to get old. Are there any other characters whose comedic sticks? Yeah, I think Deadpool, I was never I like Joe Kelly's run on Deadpool a lot. I didn't love the first Deadpool as much as everybody else. I disliked Deadpool 2. I disliked it. Didn't like it at all. But this is done by Marvel. This is introducing the X-Men. And I think it'll work in a buddy comedy kind of way. Kevin says, I've always been a big DC movie guy. I know I'm in the minority. Well, you're the AEW fan too, man. It's all right. Jay Chavez says, talking about Wolverine and the X-Men, did they have the best theme song? I mean, you can see like Storm, Cyclops. Even when we're watching X-Men 97, my kids still get on the couch and do that stuff, right? Like Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, Jubilee. Where's Gambit? Nightcrawler, Beast. Beast is underrated. I'm a big fan of Beast. I think my 3 favorite X-Men are Wolverine, Storm, and Beast. If I'm ranking them. Last topic I had on the rundown, because I do have to go pick up my son from practice, was the Daniel Bryan. No, I'm sorry, I can never say his name right. Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay match from AEW Dynasty. AEW's got to figure out a way to get their matches on non-pay-per-view and into a bundle of some sort. And if you're new to the channel, by the way, I'm seriously considering making this a Caitlin Clark WNBA women's basketball focused thing on a daily basis, where that will be the lead topic on a day-to-day basis. I'm certainly considering it. It's not a final decision yet, but I'm certainly considering it, given the return and the engagement I've gotten on that. But I also am very big into basketball as a whole, so I'm going to talk NBA. I'm very big into superheroes, as you just saw, so I'm going to talk that. I'm very big into rap and hip-hop, so stuff like the Kendrick Lamar, Drake beef that's popping off. And I'm very big into pro wrestling. You can catch me on Denise Salcedo's channel, Friday night's SmackDown reaction show. That's been a lot of fun to do. The Needle Wrestling, which I do with a couple of my buddies. You can check out that podcast as well. But those are the other topics I will hit within this show. And those are the other topics you'll see me do shorts on the platform. Because this platform, by the way, guys, let me just read you a few stats real quick, because I feel like some of y'all are invested in my success, which is beautiful. The show itself is up 193% over the previous 28 days. This show that you're watching right now is up 193% over the last 28 days. So thank you. Salute to you. My channel as a whole, and I'm going to start doing some video. I put up a video like summing up my Caitlin Clark takes from last week. I'm going to try to do one of those a week, roughly. The channel itself is up 319% in the last 28 days. 319%. So I know that must mean there's a lot of new viewers. Well, I mean, not must mean, it is a fact that there are a lot of new viewers. So I appreciate the new viewers, and I appreciate the old viewers who helped me get and start to grow. And look at this. Like, I see some of the new commenters, they share the same interests. Unless I'm wrong and you've been in here before, I just don't remember. Brandon 1050 says AEW have really bad writers when it comes to story. Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about because that match, a lot of people compared it to Cody and Roman and saying it was the best match ever on American soil. And it was good. I watched it today. I watched some of the beginning of it yesterday, but because of the pay-per-view model, it's just hard for me and it was late and it was whatever. I watched the Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay match today, and it was impressive. Really good match. I was never the biggest Daniel Bryan guy, if I'm being real. Maybe that's why I'm not the biggest AEW guy. I wasn't a Yes Movement person. I've always respected him, but he never really did it for me. Never found him that interesting. Will Ospreay, damn entertaining in the ring. I think people are trying to make it to be like WWE missed out on Will Ospreay. WWE is doing great. They didn't miss out on anything, but AEW got one in Will Ospreay. He's perfect for them. He's perfect for them. And it was a great match. No qualms, no qualifiers. But the difference between Ospreay and Danielson and Cody and Roman, to me, is the story and the stakes and the investment. Everybody cared about Cody and Roman. That made, when Cody won, so much more satisfying. The tie-in with the Shield and Seth Rollins with Roman and his conclusion as a story, so much more interesting. The guest appearances added to the stakes and the spectacle. Undertaker and Rock, who had been a part of the story. And, Usos and all that. So that's the difference to me. But I think it was a really good match. I'm not going to hate on the match. Kevin Zwicker says Danielson versus Ospreay is now the new match I'm going to show people if I want to get people into AEW. Best match. It's my new favorite match. What I found, they did a good job. The commentary really tried to sell that as like a legitimate sporting event. I felt like I was listening to MMA or boxing commentary while I was watching that match. And that's part of what AEW is going for, that sports-like presentation rather than sports entertainment. I just think the show and the spectacle of WWE was on a, because I did see those comparisons. But forgetting the Cody Roman comparisons, as a match of its own, excellent match. Excellent match. But when you see people saying it was the best match on American soil, most people are not watching New Japan Pro Wrestling. Not to say there's anything wrong with New Japan Pro Wrestling, but you're really putting yourself in a box like that. Brandon 1050, I love Daniel Bryan, but AEW used him really bad. It's a damn shame, if you ask me. I think Daniel Bryan has say over there, so that would be partially on him. Another comment saying the WNBA needs to get rid of some of these toxic older players and make Caitlin Clark and the new generation of the game next level, put that on everything. Look, I just think the older ladies, to go back to the topic at the top of the show, the older ladies, the ladies who came before just need to not hate. I think there's a little resentment, again, because all of this attention's coming now when they worked their asses off to get where they were. And respect to them, salute to them. They deserve the accolades. They deserve to be legends in their own right. But this is only good for the sport. What Caitlin Clark is only, what she's doing is only going to grow women's basketball, only going to grow basketball, period, only going to grow the WNBA, only going to get these women paid more, only going to make the college game better, again, as we follow Paige Beckers and Juju Watkins and the like, and has certainly influenced me and the possible direction of this show. All right, guys, I do have to go pick up my son from practice. So I hope you guys enjoyed this here show. Any other comments, you can get them in really quickly. I could try to get to one or two at the buzzer, but I'm already running up against it. This is the Robin Lundberg Show. I do 4 live streams a week, Monday through Thursday, around this time. Generally, I'll make an announcement if they're not around this time. I post shorts all the time, which you can get on this YouTube channel or on any of my social media platforms. And I am going to try to do a video, at least a separate video, at least once a week as well. Ernesto says, call only this kumbaya. I need competition. I need to let people know there are veterans and there are rookies. and then it's not giving him, basically saying Clark's got to earn her spot. I get it, but you just don't need to hate on her coming in. Of course, she's got to earn her spot. I appreciate all of y'all for the comments, for the interaction. Please hit like and subscribe on the channel. Comment after the fact. I will get back to you later, especially I'll get back to essentially every comment on the show. I get back to as many comments on the shorts as I possibly can. Until next time, right here on this same Robin Lundberg channel.